As a matter of fact, it was.
Hello everyone, the December Review here. It's Halloween time again, where we officially usher in fall and, at least around here, wait for the frozen tundra of the next few months. While October is a transitional month for the weather, it's also the time most people get their ghost on and enjoy some scary movies. Not for me, I mean, it's Halloween every day if you want it to be. So I figured it was a good time to dust off my ranking playlist and jump back into the monumental task of ranking every Halloween film in the series. There are a total of 13 movies in the franchise, which started with, of course, the legendary John Carpenter and Deborah Hill original, which was released back in 1978, to the most recent film Halloween Ends, which came out in 2022. Like all franchises, there's a mixed bag of great, good, and, well, difficult movies in its run. And while some are certainly better than others, if you're a fan of the series, they all do offer something to enjoy, even if it's just Michael Myers taking out a whole town.
Evil dies tonight!
Evil dies tonight!
And Halloween has the added benefit of taking the series into multiple timelines. It's not just one straight next chapter after another, oh no. After part 6, the series splinters off into its own Myers multiverse of madness. As you can see here by this excellent diagram, the Halloween series has basically 4 separate storylines. There is the original 6, minus part 3, which is its own standalone film, but for the sake of things, there is the original 6, then the H2O timeline, which picks up after part 2, and the H40 timeline, which picks up after the original. Plus there is the Rob Zombie timeline, which is a reboot that lasted 2 films. Yes, it's a bit confusing if you haven't been watching them. Feel free to print out the diagram and study it. There will be a test at the end. So go grab some popcorn, maybe carve out a few jack-o'-lanterns, and let's get this thing underway as we rank all 13 films in the Halloween universe. So to kick things off, we are starting with the most recent film to be released, the aforementioned 2022 Halloween Ends, and boy did it end, with a giant thud. Much to fans' delight, the series was picked up back in 2018 with not just the return of Myers, but also the return of Jamie Lee Curtis herself as Laurie Strode. But wait, there's more. It also brought back the maestro himself, John Carpenter, who would oversee the project and actually score the film. That's not all. There wouldn't just be a new movie, but 3. That's right. The heavens opened up and brought back Curtis and Carpenter for a brand new Halloween trilogy. What could go wrong? Well, a few things really, and the worst of it is captured in its 3rd film, which trilogy director and co-writer David Gordon Green decided to subvert expectations by remaking another John Carpenter film, Christine, instead of finishing his own Halloween trilogy. Billed as the final confrontation between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers ever, Halloween Ends promised to give a big conclusion to its Myers buildup in the previous 2 installments, with an all-out Laurie and Michael war. But yeah, that didn't really happen. Well, it sorta did, I guess. Sure, Myers is in this movie, kind of, for a few minutes, but don't worry about that, because instead of anything the production team promised and any expectation that you had, here's Corey Cunningham instead. You're welcome. Deciding to pull a 180 ends focus on Cunningham in the town of Haddonfield and what Myers' reign of terror did to its community. It asks a few poignant questions regarding the trauma that the area has endured and wonders if Michael Myers was really created from its society. It also has Michael living in a sewer drain, getting his mask stolen, and basically taking on a tag team partner like he's a WWE mid-carder. All of which is to say it wasn't the big conclusion that anyone was expecting. And while Laurie and Michael did finally have their final battle, it was about 80 minutes too late. Now there are some solid things to take away from the film. Andi Matichak as Allison really shines as her character keeps getting passed by, leaving her to explore a relationship with Corey. Also, the score is excellent. It might be the best in the latest trilogy. And it's nice to see Curtis get to finally have some sort of Michael-less existence for a little while. She almost gets to enjoy herself in the series for once.
Do it.
Do it!
Back in 2002, Halloween Resurrection was unleashed into theaters, and for years it was considered the lowest point in the series, until Corey Cunningham arrived. Thus, Resurrection gets to move up one notch to number 12, as it can no longer say it's the worst in the series, just the almost worst, or nearly as bad. Coming off of the success of the first return of Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween H2O, Resurrection finds Laurie Strode in a mental hospital, finally snapping after her decades-long Myers attachment. Or has she? Turns out she's been playing a little game pretending to be in this institution, stashing away her medication and waiting out the eventual return of Michael, where she has an elaborate plan to erase him for once and for all. It doesn't go well, and Michael ends up actually killing Laurie Strode. This would be fine and dandy if all that didn't happen in the first 15 minutes of the movie, paving way for the actual film to show up, and Halloween Resurrection turns out to be a third-rate reality TV web series. Yeah, that's right, a webisode where 7 strangers are picked to live in the Myers house and have their lives streamed online to find out what happens when people stop being polite, start getting real. Real Michael Myers. Now, I remember leaving the theater when this one came out, actually enjoying it. There were some interesting things I thought the film brought up in regards to the history of Michael. Then I went and saw it again, and it's the almost worst film in the series. Deciding to try and be a bit cutting edge, the concept of filming inside the Myers house is in of itself a solid idea, considering it's also the early 2000s, where we were just moving on from AOL dial-up internet discs in the mail and rummaging through the far reaches of the early World Wide Web. This reality show, as it were, was put together by Freddie Harris. Yes, Freddie, played by Busta Rhymes, who, after choosing his eager cast, has actually rigged the home to appear to give hints of Michael's history, all there to be discovered live on the net. Trouble is, after Mike dispatched Laurie in the intro, he decided it was time to head home, at the same time of this live stream. Hilarity ensues. At the end of the day, this concept is like driving a new car off the lot. Starts to depreciate immediately, and it's not helped along with scenes of a character named Freddy wearing a Myers mask shouting orders at the real Myers, who inexplicably obeys.
I ain't telling you to be Michael Myers. I'm playing Michael Myers.
Rick Rosenthal, who directed the fantastic original Halloween 2, was back for this 8th installment, and he couldn't overcome the script. It also has Katie Sackhoff, who would go on to be Bo-Katan in the Star Wars Mandalorian series. You know, a lightsaber would have helped this film.
Trick or treat.
Our next film on the list, 1995's Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, officially ended the original run of the series before it was rebooted the first time in H2O. This one is a convoluted mess, but I say that with some nostalgic affection. The storyline is really pushing things in terms of needing to explain Michael Myers this time around. The truth is, the continuation narrative over the past few films at this point starting to unravel over themselves, mostly due to wanting to churn out another installment as quickly as possible. Halloween 4 brought the series back very well. Halloween 5 continued it along, but dropped some hints at things to come, and here, Part 6 took those concepts and ran it straight into a wall. You see, Michael Myers isn't just some random slasher villain, oh no. He's actually the result of an old Celtic ruin curse, the Curse of Thorn. There's mad doctors involved in a cult operation who have been studying the curse and can control it, or something like that. There needs to be a final Myers bloodline sacrifice to transfer the curse, or something like that. It's a whole mess of a storyline. It's also the really first super dark entry in the series. Part 5 hinted at this, but 6 really went all in, trying to create this curse tension around a standard Halloween film, and the end result is a very mixed bag. So much so that it actually is the only film in the series to have 2 different versions. Yes, Rob Zombie's films also have a director's cut which contains some pretty big differences, especially in his first film, but they came out alongside the home release. For Halloween 6, it was years before the original version was available. As a series, Halloween is notorious not just for the films made, but also for the ones not made. We could do a 2-hour video on just the screenplays that didn't get done, or were pulled or changed. And here's probably my favorite one. Quentin Tarantino was involved with Part 6 for a short time. He had an idea of taking Michael and the Man in Black, who appears in Part 5, on the road while they go on a slasher spree. This is right after Pulp Fiction and sounds a lot like his screenplay for Natural Born Killers. This eventually fizzled out, but could you imagine that film?
Did you just order a $5 shake?
Mm-hmm.
That's a shake. That's milk and ice cream.
Last I heard.
That's $5. You don't put bourbon in or nothing?
No.
Just checking.
I'll be right back with your drinks.
Halloween 6 was originally called Halloween 666, the origin of Michael Myers. There was even a trailer that came out to get fans ready.
Halloween 6, the origin of Michael Myers.
Then that film never made it through. In fact, the film has a whole lot of drama behind the scenes, as it was rewritten and had reshoots before eventually getting recut into the version that was released into theaters. Michael is mean in this one. He gets in some pretty imaginative kills here. They all stand out as highlights of the movie. One major drawback in Halloween 6 is its recasting of a main character. Danielle Harris had been playing Jamie Lloyd for the previous 2 films. She was actually the main character in both, taking over the Laurie Strode position. Well, Jamie Lloyd is in Halloween 6, but you wouldn't really know it, because she's played by another actress, J.C. Brandy, who is fine here and is ultimately offed early in the film. But as fans of the series are concerned, it was a mistake to make the switch. It came down to money and the studio's refusal to give Harris a fair wage. The film also marks the final on-screen appearance of Donald Pleasence as Dr. Loomis, who passed during filming. After making its way around the bootleg world, the producer's cut of the film was officially released in 2014. The concept of the film is essentially the same, but there are a few notable differences. The flashier kills, including a rather great hospital rampage, were filmed later and not part of the intended version of the film. The score is also much more aligned with the original film, but was ultimately mixed with a more trendy industrial mix in the theatrical version. Can't say I find the producer's cut the better film. It's certainly more restrained at times and tries to find the original film's vibe, but at the end of the day, either version is the same thing. A convoluted mess. But it is the on-screen debut of Paul Rudd, so it gets a bonus point automatically.
Who is this?
So at number 10, we are quickly back into the most recent trilogy with 2018's reboot of the series, which is not to be confused with the original Halloween or Rob Zombie's Halloween. No, this is officially the 3rd film in the series to be called just Halloween. And to make things even more confusing, this is actually a direct sequel to the original Halloween and chooses to ignore the original Halloween 2. So this is, in and of itself, Halloween 2, but called Halloween, and isn't related to Halloween 2 or Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. The film decides to right a perceived wrong by Carpenter himself, who wasn't too thrilled with coming up with the idea that Laurie was Michael's sister, even though he wrote the original Part 2. So by erasing that film, they are no longer related, and the idea of Michael being driven by just pure evil like he was in the original can carry on. But you see, audiences have had 40 years or so of this relationship, so you can say just ignore that part, but the reality is you can't. And it really doesn't matter within the film that much anyway, so well done. I must say, from here on out, the films in the series are much more elevated from the previous ones. Being ranked 10th obviously seems low, but it's just the fact that there needs to be a ranking. Halloween 2018 isn't a bad film, just could have been better. This new timeline, all the events of the original film happened, and Michael was actually caught and locked up for the past 4 decades, but there's going to be one of those pesky transfers to another location, and that never goes well for the town of Haddonfield. So Michael escapes, heads home, and Halloween will never be the same. Again. Taking its cue from all the recent reboots and requels, 2018 takes its legacy characters, adds in a bunch of new ones, follows the architect of the original, and turns out to be a massive box office hit, becoming the highest grossing film in the series and ushering in a bit of a new slasher craze, which for me is always a good thing. It's also a bit of a remake to Halloween H2O and probably could be called Halloween H40. We've already seen a bit of this before. In H2O, Laurie is traumatized, an alcoholic, and trying to shield her son from any future Myers shenanigans. Here in H40, Laurie is traumatized, an alcoholic, and trying to shield her daughter from any future Myers shenanigans. But there is one main difference, and this time through the PTSD, Laurie is ready as she has been doom prepping for his return the entire time. 2018 is an interesting film filled with great moments that eventually add up to a solid grade. We even get the pumpkin credits back for the first time since the original second film. Well, third film if you want to be quasi-technical about it. The film is loaded with references to a lot of other movies in the series. There's a van with Resurrection written on it, and an excellent roam through the town from Michael's point of view that takes on the sandwich scene in Part 2. And there are even silver shamrock masks in the streets. Please don't watch the big giveaway at 9 p.m. And the ending is excellent, with a lovely switcheroo from Karen Nelson, Laurie's daughter, who was played very, very well by Judy Greer in her parts of the trilogy.
I can't do it! I'm sorry, I can't do it! Gotcha. Happy Halloween, Michael.
With all these characters returning in front of and behind the screen, there was one thing a bit missing, and that was John Carpenter's subtlety from the original film. This one is mean and violent, much like the Rob Zombie films, which is fine, but at this point with all involved, a return to the more suspenseful storytelling would have been a better choice, in my opinion.
Okay, it's not a cage, baby. It's a trap. Goodbye, Michael.
I have a feeling most Halloween fans are on board with this list so far. Sure, the last one could be a bit higher, but for some, I'm about to heap all types of praise on Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, or H2 as it were. And H2 is an example of how to subvert expectations, but doing so in a much more efficient way. Looking at you, Corey Cunningham. It's the art house slasher Halloween film you never knew you needed, and probably don't, but this is what we're working with. It's 2009, and Rob Zombie, he of the excellent House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, is back with his own follow-up to his Halloween remake. And remake it is definitely what he did. I'll dive more into that film a bit later, but in his follow-up, Zombie took the reins off throughout the history books and created his own unique movie based off the events of the reboot. Assuming we were going to get Rob's take on the original Halloween 2, which took place at Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, we open up H2 with Laurie Strode, now played by Scout Taylor Compton, eventually finding her way to the hospital as we pick things up immediately after the first film. But we aren't there very long before we Fast forward a year and find a very traumatized Laurie living with her best friend Annie Brackett, played by series alum Danielle Harris, and her father Sheriff Brackett, this time played by Brad Dourif. And everyone is a mess. We also get the return of Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Sam Loomis, and he's equally as crazy as the rest of them, but not so much in fear, but his ego is something else. He's written a book to profit off the events of the first film, and nobody likes him. Meanwhile, Michael is literally a hobo, drifting around the area, barely a mask left to cover his near ZZ Top beard, and he's having visions of his mother and a horse saying it's time to revisit Laurie and have a family reunion. This one is all over the place. And in many ways, it's a quiet tale on the aftermath of survivor's guilt and the pain associated with going through these tragic events. Of course, it's all interwoven with zombies, decorated language, and off-the-wall gore. This thing is a mean-spirited slasher, but it's counterbalanced with actual sympathy for its characters, even while they make poor decisions or try to drown out their anxiety that they're living with.
It's very hard for you to get closure on this. I mean, he's objectively dead, but he's living in your mind and he's living in your heart and your emotions. So that's the reality that we have to heal you from, which is why I say you're still in recovery.
So basically, I just have to wait until my brain heals.
Well, let's try and help your brain heal a little bit today, okay?
Okay.
Yes, the White Horse visions are a bit much, but its point is to connect Michael and Laurie by giving them this shared existence. Michael was always living there, and it's time for Laurie to catch up. And man, is Loomis aggravating here. It's such a beloved character in the series, and to have an acclaimed actor such as McDowell play him in such a way is really a head-scratcher, but it does set up his character arc in the film's outlandish finale.
Look, I don't think you quite understand what I'm trying to accomplish here.
Well, fair enough. I don't. Please explain it to me. I would really like to understand.
I'm selling the sizzle, not the steak.
The sizzle?
Yes.
The sizzle.
H2 was an acquired taste, but it really was a strong vehicle for Rob to lead into his next feature film, The Lords of Salem, which took his more abstract art house concept to the next level. And it also nuked the series for 9 years before the 2018 reboot came along.
Some folks think of happiness, blissfulness, togetherness. Some fools fool themselves, I guess, but they're not fooling me. I know it isn't true. I know it isn't true. Love is just a lie meant to make you blue. Love hurts. Ooh, love hurts.
Landing at number 8 is the 1998 film Scream. I mean, Hollow Scream. Okay, it's Halloween H2O, but it really wants to be Scream. So much so that Scream creator and soon-to-be Scream director Kevin Williamson was involved with the script on this one. And Jamie Lee Curtis is back in her first return to the series. In fact, it's an all-star affair overall, as Jamie's mom and original Scream queen Janet Leigh is here, alongside Josh Hartnett, LL Cool J, Michelle Williams, Adam Arkin, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and series alum Nancy Stevens round out the cast. It's also a solid entry in the franchise with a fantastic ending scene as Laurie Strode and Michael battle once again. This time around, it's not really Laurie Strode, it's Carrie Tate. You see, after the events of Halloween 2, Laurie dropped out of Haddonfield and changed her name, started a family, and became the head mistress of a private school. She's also hooked on medication, drinks anything she can, has debilitating nightmares, is way too overprotective of her son, and is about to hit the 20-year anniversary of Michael's 1978 carnage. What's the worst that could happen? Well, Scream. Scream is the worst that could happen, but you know, that film is a rather good one, so H2O is rather good as well. After taking Michael to the furthest limits of his Thorncurse shenanigans, the series hit the reset button to celebrate its 2-decade run. Now, if the aforementioned cast wasn't enough to get things moving in the right direction, how about the fact that John Carpenter himself was set to return behind the director's chair to film this chapter? But once again, money got in the way. John was ready to film, but asked for a $10 million paycheck along with a 3-picture deal with the studio, and they said no, so he walked away. Much to the chagrin of Curtis, who was trying to make this whole reunion happen along with bringing back Deborah Hill. She almost walked herself close to the start of filming, and has since said that she regretted making the film. Which makes more sense how the 2018 trilogy came around, seeing as it was a way to get John involved and basically redo this film. But with all that usual behind-the-scenes drama, H2O is a pretty solid film in that 90s sanitized slasher kind of way. From Urban Legend to I Know What You Did Last Summer, those 90s slashers, they had their own thing going on. It's helped along tremendously by the man who did go on and direct it, Steve Miner. He may not be a household name, but in the horror world, he's a legend in my book. Steve not only was here for Hollow Scream, but also directed Friday the 13th Part 2, which is my favorite film in that series, and the next one, Friday the 13th Part 3D. He also directed the 1995 film House and the 1999 classic Lake Placid. H2O works as a streamlined horror film, setting up its straightforward story and not wasting too much time getting to the point.
You know what? Charlie, here. Go get in the car. I'll be right there. What the do you think you're doing?
Mom, I'm really uncomfortable with you saying that
Well,
word.
then don't put me in the position, John. Do you know what day it is?
It's low on gore, but tries for suspense, even if it's not all that frightening. It's the first film in the Myers stories to not have Donald Pleasence, which does stand out. It also sports a ridiculous mask for Myers. I haven't spoken much about the masks to this point, but they are a big factor in the series. One could do a video on the masks alone, and they didn't really do a great job here, which didn't help the tension out too much. Yes, there are worse masks, but not many. That said, the ending scene inside the school where Carrie Tate, and Michael fight each other is worth the price of admission. It's 2007, 5 years since the franchise jumped the proverbial shark, though it seems the series had a few shark moments depending on who you talk to. The Resurrection was a final stamp on the second series timeline, so what is there left to do? Well, if you're Dimension Films, you reboot it again. There were a number of potential films discussed during this time. Everything from continuing the Resurrection storyline to even having Michael travel back in time to be around during the Halloween 3 Silver Shamrock days. But eventually they landed on a restart and Rob Zombie was brought in to direct it. His version is essentially 2 films in one. First being a prequel which focuses on Michael's family and upbringing, and its second half official remake of the 1978 film. And if there's anyone who's actually glad that Halloween Ends was made, it has to be Mr. Zombie, because fans were so unkind to his take on the story it took Corey Cunningham to kick his versions from the worst spot in the series. But not for me. I am a fan of Rob and his music, and even a bigger fan of his films. They are not for everyone. He certainly has his own style. They're usually pretty violent, maybe too much so for the Halloween series, and his language as well, unique. That's all born out of his love for the genre, and above all, he is a fan of these types of films. And that love is palpable to me in his films. For Halloween, he wanted to make a straight full-length prequel, then follow that up with the official remake in the next movie. But that didn't happen, so we got them in one. For the first half, we are subject to Michael's incredibly difficult family and bullying. This tries to give Michael a bit of sympathy as he becomes more and more unhinged before eventually snapping on Halloween. That sympathy is strongest, I feel, with the excellent portrayal of Michael's mom, Deborah, played by Sherry Moon Zombie. As a character, she may not have had her life in perfect order, but she is trying. Her bond with Michael is evident throughout the 2 films Rob made and really shines through the bark and dirt that this world lives in. Plus, she has one of my favorite lines in the whole series.
I do not enjoy calling you down here every 5 minutes.
Really? It sure seems like you do.
During the film's remake phase, we get some of the original's hallmark moments, from the daytime watching to the ghost sheet costume. Carpenter's original is mostly well represented in this new take. Laurie Strode as a character here is a bit different. No longer the more reserved and quiet Laurie that Curtis displayed. Here, Scout Taylor Compton steps in and gives Laurie a much more confident center, at least until Nightfall shows up in Haddonfield. Rob Zombie's Halloween is a loud and violent film. Certainly takes Michael into a much more brutal direction that would continue in the latest trilogy. But underneath all of the screaming and shaky cam, there is a sad story of failure when it comes to Michael Myers that Zombie explored and continued in H2. For Deborah, it manifested in guilt. For Dr. Loomis, it created a super ego to hide behind. And while Rob Zombie's Halloween films may not be everyone's favorite in the franchise, I commend his willingness to stay within the structure that the series established, while carving out his unique vision.
Stop! Michael, please. No, please. Michael! It's not her fault. It's my fault. I failed you, Michael.
Speaking of unique visions, David Gordon Green got 1 right out of 3 with his middle story in the Halloween trilogy. And number 6 we have his Empire Strikes Back entry with Halloween Kills. Picking up right after the events of his first film, Kills focuses on the aftermath of Michael's return with a town in hysterics, looking to stop Michael once and for all because evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight!
Evil dies tonight!
Halloween Kills finds the right balance between serious Halloween fare and crazy scenarios. Laurie Strode takes a bit of a back seat as she recovers in the hospital, and we all assume Michael would show up there like he did in the original Halloween 2, but instead he remains in town and on his rampage while its citizens try to band together to stop him. And it almost works. Much like the Rob Zombie series, Kills has a nice emotional story going on at its center, which for me really elevates the film. Family relationship that was shown in the 2018 film take on a whole new meaning here after Michael shows up. For years, Laurie was vilified by her daughter and granddaughter for being paranoid or unable to let things go. Now that Michael is back, those feelings are met with not just justification from Laurie, but also a stronger bond within the family as they all fight to survive. Even in Halloween Ends, which I of course rank last here, this part of the story really stands out to me and has always helped make Halloween as a whole a much deeper franchise than the other horror brands. But all that emotional connection stuff aside, Halloween Ends is also a crazy and carnage-filled romp through Haddonfield where no one is safe because Michael isn't messing around. The film has 2 standout scenes, one being a flashback to the night of the original film to show the difference in this timeline. Instead of burning at the hospital, Michael is captured. This flashback is filled with an excellent stroll through the original streets and even a Dr. Loomis appearance. Maybe the best part is the excellent mask Michael wears. If there's one thing the series really knows how to do is to mess up Myers' mask. And then there is that ending. Kills steals its own ending from the first film to trick Michael, but he eventually gets the last laugh this time. He ends up taking out Laurie's daughter Karen to set up what I assumed was going to be a final film filled with such emotion, such this time its personal intensity, that would end the series on a sensational high note. Instead, well, Corey Cunningham. But that doesn't change the fact that Halloween Kills is a very strong entry in the series. It's got a few issues with repeating dialogue and motivation, but through it all, it's a good one.
You can't close your eyes and pretend he isn't there. Because he is.
So it's the mid-1980s, and the last Halloween film, Part 3, didn't do so well, mostly because it didn't have Michael Myers in it. What's a horror series to do? Well, for our number 5 film on the list, you make a film called Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers, and you're all set. And all set they were, as the 1998 film rebounded the series to its rightful place on top of the slasher mountain. The 80s were a very fun time for horror movies, especially slasher films where it seemed like you couldn't leave your house without stepping into another masked madman film. Friday the 13th churned out 8 films during that time. A Nightmare on Elm Street had 5, and there were 1,000 more behind them littering your local movie rental store. And it was glorious. So now it was Michael's turn to shine again, and he did so in this well put together if somewhat flawed entry. Picking things up 10 years after the events of Part 2, Myers and Dr. Loomis both survived that explosion, ending with Michael badly burned in a coma and in custody. Laurie Strode has passed away and is survived here by her daughter Jamie Lloyd, the aforementioned Danielle Harris, who is now living in Haddonfield with her adopted family, the Carruthers. She bonds with her foster sister Rachel, played by Ellie Cornell, as the town gets ready to celebrate Halloween. There's only one problem. That comatose Michael Myers is about to get, you guessed it, transferred. And you know what that means. Cue the Dr. Loomis speech.
6 bodies. Sheriff, that's what I've seen between here and Richmond. A filling station in flames. I tell you, Michael Myers is here in this town.
Michael returns, takes out half the town in his pursuit of Jamie, till the good guys can get the upper hand and destroy Michael. Or did they? Halloween 4 does a whole lot right in its attempt to bring the series back to its more grounded roots. In an age where Jason Voorhees was racking up the body count in record numbers and where Freddy Krueger was inventing all sorts of creative dream carnage, Halloween 4 just wanted to tell its ghost story. And it does so rather well. I have to say I was a bit sluggish on this entry for many years. This was mostly due to the fact that they really did a bait and switch with the mask in this one. Take a look at that poster. Now take a look at the mask they used for the film. For Halloween purists, that's just indefensible, but there comes a time you just have to accept things and take a less cynical viewpoint towards it all. It's Halloween Part 4, not Phantom Thread.
It's a distraction. It's very distracting.
Maybe you pay too much attention to it.
And it's helped along by the film's co-stars in Jamie and Rachel. This is the rare example where you really do care about them and hope they can survive. It's mostly due to the fact that almost everyone else around them are jerks, and they can't catch a break. Dr. Loomis continues his descent into madness and has multiple excellent moments to shine, including a great scene involving a guy who picks him up hitchhiking, and another at a gas station where he sees Michael again for the first time in the film.
Why now? You waited 10 years. I knew this day would come. Don't go to Haddonfield. If you want another victim, take me. But leave those people in peace. Please.
Plus, the film showcases the cult favorite character of Bucky. He only had a few lines, but he made them count, brimming with confidence and a hard hat to envy. His hilarious scene lives on in infamy.
Hey, you! This city property. No trespassing. What are you, deaf? Don't try that Halloween shit with me.
All of this goes a long way to humanizing that story, much like the first film did. It's modernized for its time, and it isn't as scary as the previous ones, but it's an effective return of Michael, and a great introduction to the next chapter in the series. So what are you to do when your main villain in your franchise was last seen melting like a bag of ice left out in the Mojave Desert? Well, if your series creators, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, shift gears and pivot to the next logical storyline, involving Halloween masks that are built with special witchcraft tags, derived from Stonehenge, that will destroy anyone wearing one and witnessing a specific commercial at 9 p.m. on Halloween night. Watch The Magic Pumpkin. Yes, Halloween 3, the much maligned entry, is here at number 4. But how can a Michael Myers film without Michael Myers in it rank so high? Because Halloween 3 has a great cast and is rather enjoyable science fiction Celtic thriller all on its own. Oh, and it was my father's favorite in the series for the ones he was able to see, and that counts in my book. The reason for taking things in such a different direction was quite simple. The Michael Myers story was officially over, and the Halloween franchise would live on with different themed movies that would come out every year or so. It would be a Halloween-inspired anthology, a big screen full-feature film version of The Twilight Zone. The first 2 chapters were evil incarnate Michael Myers, and the next would be this Celtic evil mask ghost story. Well, with the film being a big letdown for audiences who assumed Michael would be back, though if you saw a commercial for it, it was all a bit obvious. Nevertheless, the movie did turn a profit, but was ultimately panned at the time as a big mistake. But it wasn't. It's actually a very well-made horror movie that, while not perfect, is pretty effective if you're able to get past the new story. That story is pretty unique. Evil Mask Maker creates the most sought-after set of Halloween masks while advertising that there will be a big giveaway on Halloween night. All you have to do is put on your mask, gather around the television, and watch The Magic Pumpkin.
8 more days to Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 8 more days to Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
This will effectively wipe out most of the population, as the mask will trigger into some sort of head-consuming bug and snake pile who will take out anyone near them. Yeah, it all sounds a bit silly, but when you have Tom Atkins and Stacey Nelkin as your leads trying to stop the madman, it's a fun horror film that thankfully went from cult status to what I believe is a universal acceptance into the series at this point. Plus, technically, Michael is in this movie. An ad for the film plays during the flick, and in fact there are a whole lot of connections to the first 2 movies in this one. Besides the obvious team behind the scenes who had been involved in the first 2 films, Laurie Strode herself, Jamie Lee Curtis, is in Halloween 3, with a voiceover role as an announcer and telephone operator.
It's 6 o'clock. Curfew. Curfew. All residents of Santa Mira, please clear the street.
Plus Nancy Loomis, who played Annie in the original film, is here as well. And Michael Myers himself, Dick Warlock, who portrayed the Shape in Part 2, is one of the evil robot henchmen. So really, Halloween 3 is still a big celebration of its original story roots. And while the concept may have changed, the intent was to continue a holiday legacy well beyond Haddonfield. But when you have a story that clicks so well with audiences, it's difficult to create change.
Dark masks, gather round your TV set. Put on your masks and watch. All witches, all skeletons, all jack-o'-lanterns.
The third commercial, it's still, please. Take off the third channel, it's still running. Stop it, please, for God's sake, please stop it. There's no more time. You've got to, please, stop it now, turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Okay, so if you're hanging in there and still watching this video, I know. Here's where things get derailed. Or do they? Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, isn't usually a film you see too high on anyone's list, let alone 3rd overall, but for me, Part 5 pulled off a rare feat in the overabundant slasher market in that it was able to be a bridge between what the series has always been about and taking things to the next level in terms of style and storytelling, and it did so very effectively in my book. Picking up after the events in Part 4, where Michael was dispatched in a mine shaft and Jamie had snapped under the weight of the evening, Halloween 5 jumps ahead to the following year where the usual holiday shenanigans can commence. And things aren't going well for our survivors. Jamie has been rendered mute, is in a care facility, and is considered evil by members of the town. Dr. Loomis has officially fallen off the deep end. down to his last few strands of sanity that he has left trying to stop Michael. And there seems to be some type of psychological bond between Jamie and Michael, so much so that Loomis is aware of it and uses it to try to bring Michael out. Think of it as the Haddonfield Force connection, just with less stormtroopers. What makes the film so effective for me is its desire to take everything to the next level, which means at this point in the story things only get a bit darker, a bit more unraveled, and a lot scarier. Director Dominic Gerard painted his version of the town with a gothic landscape, and he thankfully picked a few choice elements that made the first film so effective and used them quite well. The inclusion of daytime Michael is a big win here. Sure, he's scary at night, but the character is downright frightening during the day, especially when placed somewhere in the background of a shot where he isn't drawing your attention. But he's there, and it's scary. Carpenter knew this, which is why many of the early scenes in the original are so iconic. A lot of these sequels have tried to mimic those moments by having Michael appear then disappear a second later. Sure, that's part of the legacy, but that can usually just come off as copying. Here it has its own purpose, feeling much more authentic and in return being much more successful.
What if my mom calls and finds out Rachel is not here with us, huh? Just joking!
This entry is rather sad in many ways with its emotional connections. Series favorite Rachel Carruthers is unceremoniously dispatched early on, which helps up the tension, allowing the story to take a more no-holds-barred approach. And that's later revisited when Jamie finds her in one of the series' more emotional moments. Heck, it even made Michael himself shed a tear. And of course there is Tina, the much vilified character of the original series run. I feel the character took a lot of collateral damage in the film just because Rachel was dispatched first, and a role reversal would have been a better idea. For me, I think it worked as is, setting up the character to be one half unattached to the previous film's events while trying to survive this one. It gives her relationship with Jamie added weight as she ends up paying the ultimate sacrifice. Add to this a Sam Loomis who has had it up to here with this nonsense, and a musical score that really works well, and maybe my favorite Myers played by Don Shanks. And it all adds up to a very high ranking for the very underrated Halloween 5.
Of course you don't forget.
How could you? You never looked into his face, did you? You never saw his eyes. You never saw that nothing, no expression, blank. My memory goes back 12 years to the night when I offered. But I'm going to show you something. Look at this. Look at that. I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew that hell would not have him.
1981, the follow-up to the one that started it all, was released in theaters, picked up directly where the first one left off. Halloween was such a major success that the studio was very eager to create a sequel. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were a bit less enthusiastic as they were working on another film, The Fog, at the time. They eventually jumped into the project and helped create an entry that would prove to be a sort of path that the rest of the series would take, unknowingly setting up plot points that would eventually become more of a focus. The Celtic narrative from Michael later manifesting into the Thorn Curse was derived here, as too was the concept of Laurie being Michael's sister, which would set up the family legacy for years to come. But for Halloween 2, they were just bullet points in a story that really just wanted to be more of the night he came home. So Laurie is taken to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital while Loomis and the town try to pick up the pieces, figure out their next move. Michael is still on the loose and no one really knows how to stop him. Most of the action takes place in the isolated hospital as Michael dispatches the staff one by one until the eventual showdown with Laurie. Part 2 stands out for its time frame, being a true continuation of the first film. It really does feel like the original in many ways. It's certainly not as subtle as the first, but like any series, each subsequent entry usually kicks things up a notch, for good and for bad. And the last 25 minutes of this one is some of the best in the entire franchise. That isolation really helps continue the first film's effectiveness. When it was released, there wasn't yet a saturation of the genre. In fact, the first Halloween was just gearing up for its first TV release in conjunction with Part 2 hitting theaters. They even filmed a few extra scenes during Part 2 to insert into the original TV release due to having to cut some of the film for broadcast. You essentially had two films at your disposal that told one long story at the same time in the early 80s. You could flip through your local TV guide and see a Halloween ad. It would build excitement, and you could watch it on your own kitchen television set at 8 o'clock, and it was all very effective. Halloween 2 upped the ante on its violence. Michael was a bit more creative here in the hospital setting. The score was consistent with the first film, but modified into the more traditional Carpenter synth sounds. This outing features Dick Warlock as Michael Myers, who many considered their favorite actor in the role. He was certainly very menacing behind this mask, of which this is the original mask in this film. The long-standing rumor was that Deborah Hill had it under her bed for 3 years, but apparently Nick Castle, Michael for the most part of the first film, had it and gave it to the production when they couldn't recreate the original. It all adds up to one of the best films in this series.
Michael! Michael, stop!
Was there ever a doubt what would be the #1 film here? Of course, the original, the classic, the legendary John Carpenter's Halloween takes the top spot.
You may think they scare me, you're probably right. Black cats and goblins on Halloween night. Trick or treat!
Back in the mid-70s, Mustafa Akkad and Irwin Yablon sat down with John Carpenter to create a new horror film. They wanted to do something that would be a step above the usual horror fare. Realizing that the title Halloween had already been used for a feature film, the wheels were in motion quickly for the story that was set to unfold. Co-written with Deborah Hill, Carpenter wrote, directed, and scored the film, and was promised complete control, all for the sum of $10,000. Striving to make a haunted house film, the duo wrote a story with a common suburban backdrop, and filled its pages with jumps and scares about evil incarnate. No rhyme, no reason, just a ghost story on the screen. And the rest, as they say, is history. Halloween was filmed over the course of 4 weeks in May of 1978, with a release in October of that year. With a budget of just $300,000, the movie would go on to capture $70 million in the global box office, making it one of the most successfully independently released films of all time. It's not hard to see why it did so well. The story itself is simple. Crazed Michael Myers is institutionalized but escapes, heads home and goes crazy again. It's a basic outline, but what's shaded in between its narrative is a compelling and chilling film that really stayed with its audience long after they left the theater. And that score. There aren't many films, let alone horror movies, with a more famous score. The music alone is chilling. You could have a blank screen with the soundtrack rolling and that would be quite effective. Not sure that I can add any more praise onto the film that hasn't already been heaped upon countless times, but I can reiterate just how influential this film was and continues to be. In the history of slasher films, there are a few that stand out over the decades. We can go back to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho as a solid starting point. Look no further than the names and homage used in Halloween from Psycho. And then add in Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Bob Clark's Black Christmas as the trinity of early slasher films. In fact, Black Christmas was an obvious influence, with its similar holiday theme and point-of-view camera work. Clark and Carpenter were friends and they discussed Halloween during pre-production. And Halloween then opened the floodgates on the genre with its success. Studios took notice and flooded the market with their own low-budget slasher flicks. Soon every weekend, one after another were launched into theaters and home video stores. Some were quite successful in their own right, others not so much, but a new wave of horror films had arrived, and it was all due to John, Deborah, and the whole cast and crew behind Halloween. There was something to be said about the original film in the early 80s in terms of the horror movie experience. With the world rapidly changing since then, that small-town story about a guy with a painted William Shatner mask, well, it just hit differently. Plans have gone silent on the supposed TV series that was in the works in 2023, and that was going to focus in and around the original 1978 timeframe. There's been zero news since this announcement, leaving many to assume it's not happening. There's some rumors out there that they may have switched to a possible new movie instead, but there has been no official word, just the news of the Halloween video game. So, for fans of the series, we get to wait a little longer for something new, which will eventually come to fruition. Halloween has become part of our collective lexicon, which is why the film and series still hold an interest. Sure, the most recent film may have seemed to take Michael out for good, but, like Tommy Doyle once said, you can't kill the boogeyman.